The odd one out. Ethan was the only human in the entire alien academy. Among the towering, multi-limbed, and highly intelligent alien students, he seemed out of place. At least, that's what the others thought. The academy was the pride of the Galactic Union, where the best and brightest from across the galaxy came to study. Ethan, the lone representative of Earth, didn't quite fit their expectations. The alien students often whispered behind his back, or sometimes right in front of him. "Look at him," snickered Zorn, the self-proclaimed leader of the class. His scaly green skin shimmered under the artificial lights. So small, so weak. Are we sure his species even belongs in this academy? His friends burst into laughter, their voices echoing down the metallic hallways. Ethan ignored them, keeping his head down as he walked to his next class. He was used to it by now. The insults, the jokes, the constant comparisons. Every day it was the same. "He doesn't even have claws or fangs," another student muttered. "What does he even do? Walk around and hope no one steps on him." Despite their words, Ethan remained calm. He didn't lash out, didn't try to argue or defend himself. He simply smiled, a quiet, mysterious smile that seemed to irritate Zorn even more. "Why do you smile like that?" Zorn snapped one day in the cafeteria, slamming his tray down on Ethan's table. The room went silent as everyone turned to watch. Ethan looked up, meeting Zorn's yellow eyes with his calm blue ones. "Because I know something you don't," he said softly. Zorn blinked, caught off guard for a moment, before recovering with a sneer. "What could you possibly know that I don't, human?" Ethan didn't answer. He simply went back to eating his meal, leaving Zorn fuming. The truth was, Ethan didn't care what they thought of him. He had grown up hearing stories about the Galactic Union, about how humans were often seen as the underdogs. But he also knew the truth about his people, what they had survived, what they had achieved. He didn't need to prove anything to these aliens. Still, the constant bullying wasn't easy to endure. Zorn made it his mission to humiliate Ethan at every opportunity. During combat training, he would challenge Ethan to sparring matches, knowing full well that Ethan wasn't as physically strong as the other species. "Come on, human," Zorn taunted during one such session, circling Ethan on the training mat. "Show us what you've got." Ethan dodged Zorn's blows with surprising agility, but he didn't fight back. He wasn't here to entertain them. "Coward," Zorn hissed, stepping forward to land a heavy blow. But just as his claws were about to strike, Ethan sidestepped, causing Zorn to stumble. The class erupted in laughter, not at Ethan, but at Zorn. "Guess you missed," Ethan said quietly, walking off the mat. Zorn's face flushed with embarrassment. He was determined to teach the human a lesson. The turning point came when their instructor announced an upcoming field trip. "We will be visiting Earth," the instructor declared. The room filled with murmurs and laughter. "Earth?" Zorn snorted. "What could we possibly learn there?" The instructor frowned but didn't respond. Ethan, sitting at the back of the room, allowed himself a small smile. After class, Zorn cornered him in the hallway. "Excited to go back to your little rock, human?" he sneered. "I'm sure it'll be as boring as you are." Ethan shrugged. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe you'll see things you never expected." Zorn laughed, his friends joining in. "What could your primitive little planet possibly show us? A few huts. Some sticks and stones. Please." Ethan didn't argue. He didn't need to. He knew that Earth had surprises waiting for them, and for the first time, he was looking forward to the field trip. The next few days were filled with preparations for the journey. The students were excited, but for all the wrong reasons. They saw the trip as a chance to mock Ethan on his home turf. Zorn, in particular, was determined to find something to ridicule. "This is going to be fun," Zorn said to his friends as they boarded the ship. "Let's see how this human's pathetic planet measures up." Ethan stayed silent during the journey, his calm demeanor unnerving the others. As the ship approached Earth, the alien students crowded around the windows, eager to catch their first glimpse of the primitive planet. But when Earth came into view, their laughter stopped. What? What is that? One of them whispered, staring at the sprawling cities, the glimmering towers, the bustling activity below. Zorn frowned, his confidence wavering for the first time. Ethan stood at the back, watching their reactions. He didn't say anything, but his smile grew just a little wider. "Welcome to Earth," he said softly, more to himself than to them. "Let's see what you think after this." Arrival on Earth. The alien transport ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, cutting through thick clouds as the curvature of the planet stretched below. The alien students pressed their faces against the viewing glass, expecting to see rolling green fields, scattered villages, or perhaps crumbling cities. Instead, they were greeted by sprawling megacities that glittered like jewels under the sun. Towering structures pierced the clouds, and immense transport systems crisscrossed the sky. Ships, far sleeker and faster than their own, zipped by in neat formations. Zorn squinted, his claws gripping the railing. "This can't be Earth, can it?" Ethan, standing near the back, hid his smile. "Oh, it is." The ship docked at one of Earth's orbital platforms, a massive station larger than anything the alien students had seen before. Earth's defense forces lined the bay, their armor reflecting the harsh glow of the docking lights. A group of high-ranking officers approached the class as they disembarked. To Zorn's shock, the officers saluted Ethan. "Welcome home, sir," one of them said, offering a slight bow of respect. The alien students exchanged confused glances. Zorn couldn't hold back. "Sir, him," he whispered harshly. Ethan only nodded. "It's good to be back." As the class stepped onto Earth's soil, the stark contrast between their expectations and reality became even clearer. The city around them hummed with life and technology. Drones zipped through the streets, autonomous vehicles glided soundlessly, and holographic billboards projected advertisements that seemed too advanced even by galactic standards. One alien student leaned toward Zorn. "I thought this planet was supposed to be underdeveloped." Zorn scowled. He didn't have an answer. Their guide, a human historian named Dr. Reynolds, greeted the class with a warm smile. "Welcome to Earth. I hear you've been eager to visit." His eyes flicked to Zorn with a knowing glint. The class began their tour in the heart of the city. Ethan remained quiet, watching as his classmates stared, wide-eyed, at the skyscrapers and advanced transit systems. Human cities were rebuilt after the resource wars, Dr. Reynolds explained as they walked. Much of Earth's development came from necessity. Humans adapt quickly when survival is at stake. Zorn snorted. "Adapt quickly, huh? Still doesn't explain why everything here looks, well, better than I thought." Dr. Reynolds chuckled. "That's just the surface. There's more to see." The next stop was the Earth Defense Command, a sprawling military complex located deep within the mountains. As the transport descended toward the facility, alien students murmured nervously. The entire compound was lined with weaponry and shield generators. Warships floated in formation above the base like silent sentinels. Zorn crossed his arms, trying to mask his unease. "Impressive. But every planet has defenses." Ethan's voice was quiet but firm. "Ours are different." Inside the command center, the students watched live demonstrations. A squad of elite human soldiers took the stage, demonstrating advanced combat techniques. One soldier disarmed and incapacitated multiple opponents within seconds, faster than the alien students could even track. Zorn's eyes narrowed. "Are they enhanced?" Dr. Reynolds shook his head. "No enhancements, just training and instinct." One of Zorn's friends whispered nervously, "They're faster than some of our elites." But the real surprise came when the class was invited to try a combat simulation. Zorn stepped forward confidently, volunteering to lead his squad. They were tasked with a simple objective: capture a beacon guarded by human trainees. The exercise began, and within minutes, Zorn's team was outmaneuvered and neutralized. The human trainees barely broke a sweat. Ethan, watching from the sidelines, finally spoke. "It's not about strength, Zorn. It's about how fast we learn. Zorn pulled off his training helmet, scowling. You could have warned me. Ethan shrugged. I thought it was more fun to let you see for yourself. The tour continued, leading the students to the outskirts of the city. There they visited what looked like a barren wasteland, until the ground beneath them rumbled. Slowly, massive bunkers and weapons platforms emerged from the earth, revealing an underground defense grid that stretched for miles. Zorn's mouth went dry. How long has this been here? Centuries, Ethan replied, watching the defenses rise. Humans always prepare for the worst, even during peace. For the first time, Zorn found himself at a loss for words. The quiet human he had mocked for so long stood beside him, watching Earth's strength unfold without a hint of arrogance. As the sun began to set, Zorn glanced at Ethan. All right, maybe I was wrong about your planet. Ethan smiled faintly. That's okay. Most people are. But deep down, Zorn knew this trip had changed more than just his opinion. It had shattered every assumption he had about humanity, and he wasn't sure he would ever look at them the same way again. The human history lesson. The class gathered in front of a massive holographic display deep within Earth's largest historical archive. The room was vast, lined with towering shelves filled with digital records and artifacts from humanity's long, turbulent history. Ethan stood quietly at the back as Dr. Reynolds activated the display. A glowing image of Earth appeared, rotating slowly in the air. Welcome to Earth's Hall of History, Dr. Reynolds began, his voice calm but commanding. Today, you'll learn why humanity is often misunderstood. The alien students shifted uncomfortably. Zorn leaned back, arms crossed, still unimpressed despite the sights they had seen so far. Every species has its stories, Zorn said with a slight smirk. What makes yours so different? Dr. Reynolds raised an eyebrow but smiled. That's exactly what we're here to find out. With a flick of his hand, the hologram shifted to display ancient Earth. Mountains, rivers, and scattered settlements filled the projection. This, Reynolds said, is Earth thousands of years ago. A young species struggling to survive. Alone. The aliens watched as images of early human civilizations flickered by. Tribes, ancient wars, empires rising and falling. To the alien students, it seemed primitive. Zorn whispered to one of his classmates, I don't see anything impressive yet. But Reynolds continued, unfazed by their doubt. Humanity didn't have alliances or advanced technology handed to them. Every innovation, every breakthrough came through hardship. Alone, we faced diseases, natural disasters, and conflicts that wiped out entire populations. The hologram changed, now showing great plagues, volcanic eruptions, and devastating floods. The aliens observed quietly, but still there was little sign of the humanity they had begun to fear. And yet, Reynolds added with a hint of pride, we survived. Because that is what humans do best. Suddenly, the display shifted. Images of fire and steel filled the air, tanks rolling across barren fields, fighter jets screaming through the sky, and soldiers locked in brutal hand-to-hand combat. The class flinched as the sounds of distant gunfire echoed around the room. What is this? Zorn asked, eyes narrowing. This, Ethan finally spoke, stepping forward, is when humanity stopped fighting nature and started fighting each other. The projection continued, showing the great wars that reshaped Earth, world wars, the resource conflicts, and eventually, the extinction wars. The room grew colder as images of alien warships filled the display. The invading fleets descended on Earth, overwhelming human forces with sheer numbers and advanced weaponry. The alien students sat up straight, watching closely. This was the first time Earth was invaded by forces from beyond, Reynolds explained. We weren't ready for it. Billions died. Entire continents were burned to the ground. The display darkened, showing Earth's cities in flames, desperate human resistance, and alien forces marching across the planet. Zorn smirked. nudging one of his friends. See, even the humans couldn't hold out forever. But Ethan's eyes didn't waver. Watch carefully, he said softly. Zorn's smirk faded as the hologram continued. Earth's cities lay in ruins, but the fighting never stopped. Human guerrilla fighters ambushed alien forces, using scavenged weapons and homemade explosives. Soldiers in tattered uniforms launched surprise attacks, slipping away into the shadows before reinforcements could arrive. The projection zoomed in on a single human soldier, surrounded by alien troops. With nothing but a blade, he fought and brought down 6 of them before collapsing. Zorn's jaw tightened. Humans, Reynolds continued, have a saying. If you corner a wounded animal, it fights harder. And when Earth was cornered, we fought harder than anyone expected. The next images showed Earth's retaliation. Ships rising from the ashes, weapons forged from salvaged alien tech, and newly constructed fleets launching into space. The aliens gasped as human warships, far more advanced than anything they had seen before, engaged and decimated entire invasion fleets. Over the course of 50 years, Reynolds explained, Earth went from a defeated world to the most powerful force in this sector. Alone, without allies, humans pushed the invaders out, and we made sure they never returned. The final image showed Earth's fleet, larger and stronger than ever, patrolling the stars. Silence filled the room. Even Zorn couldn't find the words to respond. That, Ethan said, stepping next to Reynolds, is why Earth looks the way it does now. The peace you see wasn't given to us. It was bought with blood. Zorn's claws tapped nervously against his arm. He glanced at Ethan, the quiet human he had ridiculed for months. Suddenly, Ethan's calm smile made sense. So, what happened to the species that invaded Earth? One student finally asked, breaking the silence. Reynolds looked at Ethan, who answered without hesitation. They don't exist anymore. The weight of the words settled over the class. Zorn swallowed hard, his arrogance slipping away. As the group left the hall, the alien students whispered amongst themselves, casting nervous glances at Ethan. Zorn stayed quiet, walking beside him. I didn't know, Zorn admitted under his breath. I thought humans were just lucky. Ethan chuckled softly. Humans don't believe in luck. We believe in preparation. Zorn didn't laugh. For the first time, he wasn't sure if the human was joking. The training ground. The next day, the class was led to one of Earth's top training facilities, a sprawling complex located in a remote part of the planet, surrounded by dense forests and mountains. It was a place where humans honed their skills in combat, survival, and strategy. The facility was so vast that it was nearly impossible to see its limits, and as the group arrived, the alien students were visibly nervous. This wasn't the kind of place they were used to. Here, the stakes were real, and the training was brutal. Zorn's pride was beginning to falter. He had spent the past few days mocking Ethan and humanity, but as each new challenge emerged, his confidence wavered. His friends, too, seemed uneasy as they followed the guide into the heart of the facility. The hum of advanced machinery and the sound of simulated gunfire filled the air, setting the tone for what was to come. Welcome to Earth's elite training grounds. The instructor, Sergeant Davidson, greeted them with a stern expression. He was an older human with graying hair and a face that had seen countless battles. Here, we train soldiers, strategists, and survivors. You'll see firsthand how we prepare for the unexpected. Zorn scoffed. Prepare for the unexpected? What do you mean by that? Davidson's eyes locked onto Zorn. I mean we train for everything. Not just war, but survival. Every human here is trained to think, adapt, and overcome, no matter the odds. The alien students didn't speak, but their skepticism was clear. They had heard the stories about humans' survival instincts, but they had never fully believed them. They had always viewed humanity as weak, a species that relied on brute force from other, stronger species to survive. But here, they were about to see something different. The group was led to a simulation chamber, a massive arena that looked like a cross between a battlefield and a jungle. The floor was covered in thick, artificial grass, and towering trees surrounded the area. Holographic animals roamed the environment, while hidden cameras recorded every move. Davidson gestured for the students to gather around a large table, where a map of the simulation was projected. You'll be participating in a survival exercise. Your goal is simple: reach the safe zone in the center of the arena. But beware, the environment will fight back. There are no rules here, only survival. Zorn raised an eyebrow. Sounds like a waste of time. We'd fought on dozens of planets. How bad could this be? Davidson didn't respond, instead turning to one of the human soldiers standing nearby. Private Harris, if you would be so kind. Without warning, Harris activated the simulation, and the group was plunged into a dense, humid forest. The alien students blinked, adjusting to the sudden change in environment. The air was thick, and strange noises filled the space. Wild creatures hidden in the underbrush, the rustle of leaves, and the occasional distant roar. Zorn immediately started walking forward, his claws extended. This will be easy. We just walk to the center, right? But as soon as he took a step, a massive, snarling creature leaped from the shadows, its fangs bared. The alien students froze, their eyes widening. Zorn lunged, but the creature was faster. It swiped at him, knocking him to the ground. Help! Zorn yelled, but the others were already retreating. One of Zorn's friends attempted to fire his weapon, but the shots seemed to have little effect. The creature was massive, its skin tough like armor. The alien students quickly realized that they weren't prepared for this kind of fight. Just as the creature advanced, Ethan stepped forward from the back of the group. He didn't rush into battle. Instead, he calmly observed the creature's movements. With a flick of his wrist, he pulled out a simple tool from his pack, a small device. The tool emitted a high-pitched sound, and suddenly, the creature froze in place. The students stared in disbelief. Zorn scrambled to his feet, dusting himself off. "What did you do?" Ethan, still calm, explained, "It's a sonic deterrent, simple technology. Sometimes, you don't need to fight. You just need to think." Zorn's arrogance was starting to crack. He had been certain that humans were no match for the raw strength and technology of other species, but what he had just seen was different. Ethan hadn't fought the creature. He had outsmarted it. But the lesson wasn't over. The group continued through the jungle, facing increasingly difficult challenges. There were deadly traps set by the environment, including quicksand pits, razor-sharp vines, and the constant threat of aggressive wildlife. Zorn and his friends struggled to keep up. Each time they thought they had the situation under control, something else threw them off balance. Meanwhile, Ethan remained calm, guiding the group with his cool-headed approach. He used his knowledge of survival tactics, sharing tricks for finding clean water, identifying safe food sources, and avoiding danger without ever engaging directly. Every time they reached a hurdle, Ethan solved it quickly, often with tools or tactics the others hadn't even considered. Finally, after hours of trekking through the harsh terrain, the group reached the safe zone. The alien students were exhausted, covered in scratches and bruises. Zorn's pride had been completely shattered. He had never been pushed so far so quickly. Davidson, who had been watching from a control room, opened a communication line. "Congratulations, you've made it to the safe zone. But this is just the beginning. You've learned the first lesson of surviving on Earth." The alien students, panting and sweating, looked at each other. Zorn's face was pale. What lesson is that?" "The lesson," Davidson said with a slight smile, "is that humans don't fight because they're the strongest. They fight because they're the smartest." Zorn didn't answer. He was too busy trying to catch his breath. But in his mind, a new respect for humanity was beginning to form. He had always thought of humans as weak, unimportant. But after today, he realized that their true strength came from something far more dangerous. their ability to adapt and survive against all odds. As the group made their way back to the base, Zorn turned to Ethan, his usual bravado replaced with something more humble. "I didn't think you had it in you," he admitted quietly. Ethan shrugged. "It's just how we're built." Zorn nodded, finally understanding. Humanity wasn't just surviving on Earth, it was thriving because it never gave up, no matter the challenges. And that was something no alien race could take lightly. Earth's greatest weapon. The next phase of the field trip took the class deep into one of Earth's most secretive locations, a high-security underground facility known only as the Bastion. It was a place so classified that even the alien students' advanced technology could not detect its location from space. Only humans knew where it was, and they kept it that way. As they approached, the group marveled at the sheer size of the entrance. A massive stone door, adorned with intricate symbols, slid open silently as their guide, Dr. Reynolds, led them inside. The temperature dropped immediately, and the air seemed thicker, more oppressive. It was as though the very atmosphere inside this place was designed to remind visitors that they were about to see something extraordinary and dangerous. Inside, the facility stretched for miles. The walls were lined with advanced technology, each panel humming with life. Zorn, whose ego had been steadily cracking since arriving on Earth, eyed the room with growing unease. His friends shifted nervously, each of them realizing that this was no ordinary place. They had seen advanced weaponry and defenses in other parts of the galaxy, but this was different. This was something humans had hidden away for centuries. Dr. Reynolds stopped in front of a massive vault door. "What you are about to see," he said, "is humanity's greatest weapon. It is not a weapon of war. It is not a weapon of destruction. It is something far more powerful. It is our adaptability." He nodded to one of the soldiers standing nearby, and the massive doors began to open with a deep, resonating sound. The students stood in stunned silence as the door revealed what lay beyond. Inside the vault was a room filled with what appeared to be empty. But as the lights flickered on, the aliens could see strange glass pods lining the walls, each filled with fluid. At first, they thought it was some sort of alien research lab, but then they noticed the pods weren't just empty containers. Each pod contained a human. But these humans were different. Their bodies were suspended in a kind of hibernation, their eyes closed, their forms connected to various tubes and machines. "What is this?" Zorn asked, stepping forward. "This," Dr. Reynolds said, his voice full of pride and quiet awe, "is humanity's ultimate survival mechanism. We call it Project Genesis." Zorn's eyes widened. "Survival mechanism? What are they doing here?" "These humans are not just warriors. They are engineers, strategists, and creators. The very best Earth has to offer. They have been genetically enhanced and trained to perform in extreme conditions. The idea was simple. If humanity faces extinction, we would not die. We would evolve. These individuals are the foundation of that evolution." The alien students, still unsure of what they were seeing, walked cautiously toward one of the pods. A clear hologram flickered above it, displaying detailed genetic data. The human inside was lean, with piercing blue eyes and a strong jawline. He looked calm and peaceful in his suspended state. "This person," Dr. Reynolds continued, "was once a military strategist. He was enhanced to survive in the harshest environments, to learn faster, to innovate in ways that normal humans couldn't." Zorn stepped back. "So these are soldiers?" Dr. Reynolds shook his head. "Not just soldiers. They are the next step in humanity's survival. If Earth is threatened again, if humanity is pushed to the brink of extinction, these individuals will be awakened. They will lead humanity's resurgence, rebuilding everything we've lost." Zorn couldn't contain his disbelief. "But this is madness. You're telling me that Earth has created superhumans hidden in these pods just in case, for survival, and you're just keeping them here, waiting." Ethan, who had been standing silently at the back of the group, stepped forward. He looked at Zorn, his calm demeanor unshaken. "This is who humans are, Zorn. You call it madness, but we see it as preparation. We know that the galaxy is full of dangers. We know we aren't the strongest, and we're okay with that. But we don't give up. We don't quit." Zorn didn't respond right away, but the other alien students were clearly rattled by the revelation. One of them whispered, "They're preparing for the end." "Yes," Dr. Reynolds replied, "but we're preparing to rise again." The atmosphere grew tense as the aliens absorbed the gravity of what they were witnessing. The scale of Earth's preparedness, its hidden resources, was unlike anything they had imagined. This wasn't just about surviving one invasion or one crisis. It was about humanity's refusal to ever be defeated. And these individuals, these sleepers, represented the ultimate backup plan for Earth. Zorn's mind raced. He had spent his life traveling the galaxy, confident that strength was the key to survival. He had always looked down on humans, convinced they were weak compared to the mighty species of the galaxy. But now, standing in this underground facility, he was beginning to see things differently. What if these people, what if they never wake up? Zorn asked, a trace of doubt creeping into his voice. "That's the point," Ethan answered, his voice steady and quiet. "They don't have to. As long as humanity remembers how to adapt, we never need to rely on them. But if the time comes, if Earth faces extinction again, they'll be there, ready to rebuild." Zorn stood motionless, staring at the pod. His mind was clouded with questions, but one thing was certain. Earth's greatest weapon wasn't its technology or its military. It was its refusal to bow down to defeat, its ability to adapt and evolve in the face of extinction. The alien students began to understand that humanity's strength wasn't about power or destruction. It wasn't about dominance or conquest. It was about resilience. It was about preparing for the worst, no matter how impossible the odds seemed, and always fighting, always surviving. As they left the facility, Zorn's steps were slow, his mind still processing the enormity of what he had just learned. The quiet confidence of Ethan, the calmness with which he spoke of humanity's survival, was beginning to make sense. Ethan wasn't arrogant. He wasn't pretending to be stronger. He was simply prepared for a future where Earth would never fall. Zorn looked over at Ethan, who was standing quietly at the back of the group, as always. "You were right," Zorn said, his voice low. "I don't think I truly understood what Earth was capable of." Ethan turned and smiled, but there was no arrogance in his expression. "You're not the only one, Zorn. Now you know why we survive." And for the first time, Zorn realized that humanity's true strength wasn't in the fight. It was in knowing they could win, no matter the cost. The turning point. The next morning, the class gathered once again in a remote part of Earth, this time a place unlike any they had seen before. Their transport ship, a sleek and quiet vessel, landed on a flat, barren stretch of land, nothing but cracked earth and distant, jagged mountains in sight. It looked like the aftermath of some great disaster, a place where life seemed to have given up. Zorn couldn't help but frown. "This is Earth. It looks like a wasteland." He glanced at his companions. "I don't see what this has to do with anything." Dr. Reynolds, who had been leading them through their tour, smiled faintly. "Welcome to one of Earth's most dangerous places, a place where humanity's darkest secrets are kept." Zorn looked at Ethan, who stood silently at the back, his arms crossed. There was something in Ethan's demeanor that suggested he knew exactly what was about to unfold, but the alien students didn't understand yet. The landscape before them was nothing but empty, cracked earth, with the occasional twisted tree or plant. It seemed like the last place on Earth where humans would thrive. But Dr. Reynolds was about to reveal why this place existed, and why the alien students had been brought here. "Follow me," Dr. Reynolds said, turning to lead them toward a small, nondescript building. Its metallic doors were sealed shut, and the walls seemed to pulse with an odd, quiet energy. As they approached, Zorn could feel a strange chill run down his spine. The air felt thick, oppressive, as if something significant, something ancient, was hidden within. Inside, the students were greeted by the eerie hum of machines and the flicker of dim lights. The room opened into a wide chamber filled with strange machinery, computers, and large screens displaying intricate maps of Earth. At first glance, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, just another military base or research station. But as Dr. Reynolds began to speak, the alien students began to realize that this was no ordinary facility. This, Dr. Reynolds said, pausing for effect, is Earth's last line of defense. It's not a military base. It's not a weapons station. It's something much more important. It's a place where humanity can prepare for the worst, even when the rest of Earth falls. Zorn's brow furrowed. What do you mean? How could you prepare for something when everything is already gone? Dr. Reynolds smiled, but there was a hint of sadness in his expression. That's the thing about humanity, Zorn. We don't just prepare to fight. We prepare to rebuild. And sometimes, the only way to survive is to start over. With a flick of his hand, the screen flickered to life, showing a detailed map of Earth, one that seemed to be constantly shifting. This, Dr. Reynolds said, is Earth's global emergency plan. It's called Project Rebirth. When all else fails, when Earth is on the verge of collapse, this program activates. It's designed to ensure that humanity can begin anew, no matter how many times we're knocked down. The alien students stared at the map, their mouths agape. They had never seen anything like it before. Earth was prepared for the unimaginable, a complete reset, a total reconstruction of life itself. We know that we're not invincible, Dr. Reynolds continued, but we also know that the will to survive is stronger than anything else. This facility contains the technology, the knowledge, and the resources to bring humanity back from the brink of extinction. Zorn's mind raced. He had always seen humanity as weak, incapable of standing up to the stronger species of the galaxy. But now, standing in this room, surrounded by humanity's fail-safes and hidden strengths, he began to understand the depth of Earth's resolve. Humans had never just fought for survival. They had always been ready to start over if necessary. Dr. Reynolds motioned toward a large cylindrical chamber at the center of the room. Inside, a glowing sphere hummed with energy. This, he said, his voice quieter now, is the heart of Project Rebirth. It contains the essence of Earth's future. If the planet is ever destroyed, if humanity's population is wiped out, this sphere will activate. It will restart Earth's ecosystem. It will reseed the planet, and it will protect humanity's genetic legacy. We'll be able to start again, building from the ashes. Zorn's mind struggled to process the enormity of what he was hearing. Earth wasn't just a planet of survivors. It was a planet that had planned for every possible future, including the worst. You mean, you have a backup plan for everything? Dr. Reynolds nodded slowly. Yes, because we've seen what can happen when you don't plan. Earth has suffered through extinction events, disasters, and wars. We've seen species rise and fall. But humanity's plan is always to ensure survival, no matter what happens. Ethan, who had been standing in silence, finally spoke. You see, Zorn, humans aren't afraid to start over. We aren't afraid of failure. We learn from our mistakes, adapt, and grow stronger. That's how we survived everything that came our way. And that's how we'll continue to survive. Zorn's arrogance was gone. He stared at the glowing sphere, the center of Earth's ultimate contingency plan, and felt a chill wash over him. He had always believed that strength came from sheer power, from dominance. But Earth had shown him something different. It wasn't about the strength of one individual or the might of one empire. It was about resilience, the ability to recover, to rebuild, to evolve. The alien students looked around the room in silence, all of them beginning to understand what had always eluded them. Zorn's voice was low as he finally spoke. I thought I knew what Earth was. But now, I don't know if I've ever truly understood. Ethan looked over at him, his expression calm but knowing. Most people don't, Zorn. But now you do. The lesson had been learned, not through strength or combat, but through survival. Humanity didn't fear the worst, because it had always been ready to face it. And in that readiness, Earth had become something far more dangerous than any of them had imagined. As the class left the facility, the silence was heavy. Zorn walked beside Ethan, no longer mocking or taunting him. His thoughts were far away, lost in the understanding of Earth's survival philosophy. And as he looked back at the barren landscape, he realized that humanity's greatest strength was not in its power to conquer, but in its ability to endure. And for the first time, Zorn wasn't so sure that the alien races of the galaxy were truly the ones in control. Earth, it seemed, was preparing for something much bigger than any of them had anticipated. Respect earned. The final day of the field trip had arrived, and the alien students were quiet as they boarded their transport ship, preparing to leave Earth. The trip had changed them in ways they hadn't anticipated. They had witnessed Earth's hidden strengths, its remarkable resilience, and its unexpected ability to survive even the most dire circumstances. The confidence they once held over humans had been shattered. Zorn stood at the window, looking out at the fading image of Earth as their ship ascended into the void. The planet, once a symbol of weakness in his eyes, now seemed different, distant yet somehow more powerful. He couldn't shake the feeling that Earth, despite its peaceful appearance, was hiding something far more dangerous, something that made it stronger than any of the advanced species he had known. "Goodbye, Earth," Zorn muttered to himself. "I never thought I'd say this, but I have a new respect for you." The other students, still processing what they had experienced, were equally quiet. They had witnessed Earth's ability to adapt, to survive, and to rebuild. They had seen humans outsmart alien creatures, defeat invaders, and train for any eventuality. The idea that Earth was capable of not just surviving, but thriving under the most extreme conditions was something none of them had expected. Ethan, who had been unusually quiet during the final hours of the trip, stood next to Zorn as they both gazed out at the distant planet. The usual teasing, the snide remarks, the laughter at his expense, all of it had faded. Zorn glanced at him, still unsure of how to approach this new dynamic. "You never told us about Earth's real strengths," Zorn said softly, his voice almost respectful. "You just let us see it for ourselves." "Why?" Ethan smiled, a small, knowing smile that only he seemed to understand. "Because sometimes, Zorn, it's better to let others learn for themselves. If I had told you everything, you wouldn't have believed me. But you saw it. You felt it. You understand now." Zorn's mouth tightened as he processed Ethan's words. He hadn't expected such wisdom from the human who had once seemed so ordinary. He had expected a weaker, more passive species, a people to be looked down on. But now, after everything they had witnessed, Zorn had learned that it was his understanding that was lacking, not Earth's strength. The ship continued its journey through the stars, and the group sat in uneasy silence. But as the hours passed, something began to shift. Zorn found himself staring at Ethan more than once, seeing the human not as a weakling to be mocked, but as something far more formidable, someone who had a deep understanding of the way the universe worked. The moment came when they were nearing their home planet, and Dr. Reynolds, sensing the shift in the group's mindset, spoke up. "You've all learned a great deal about humanity's strength, about our history, and our future. But more importantly, you've learned about ourselves." Zorn looked up, meeting Dr. Reynolds' eyes. "What do you mean?" "Humans have always been underestimated. We are a species that doesn't just survive. We evolve. We adapt. We face challenges head-on. And no matter how many times we fall, we always get back up." Dr. Reynolds paused, his eyes glinting with something deeper. "That's why Earth will never be a target again. Because the galaxy will know. It's not the humans you should fear. It's their ability to keep fighting." Zorn's heart skipped a beat as he understood the full scope of Dr. Reynolds' words. It wasn't about Earth's power or its military might. It was about humanity's undying will to fight for their survival, no matter how insurmountable the odds might seem. Earth was not a species to be conquered. It was a species that would rise from the ashes every time. Earth may not have the most advanced technology, the biggest armies, or the largest fleets, Dr. Reynolds continued, but it has something more valuable, the will to never give up. And that is a strength no one can take away. Zorn turned to Ethan again, his voice softer now. I used to think humans were weak. I thought you were just a primitive species, hiding behind your tools and your technologies. But I was wrong. Ethan looked at him, his expression unchanged. Most people are. Zorn's lips curled into the smallest of smiles, but it was a smile of genuine respect. You've earned my respect, Ethan. And I think, deep down, the rest of us now understand. As the transport ship made its final approach to the alien academy, Zorn felt something he hadn't expected. A deep, profound shift in how he viewed the human race. They weren't weak. They weren't naive. They were unbreakable. And in the vastness of space, where every species fought for dominance, that was the greatest strength of all. The ship touched down, and the alien students disembarked, each of them quietly reflecting on their experiences. As Zorn stepped off the ship and onto the Academy's grounds, he turned to Ethan once more. This trip, it changed me, he admitted. I'm not sure I'll ever see the galaxy the same way again. Ethan nodded, his smile faint but knowing. I don't expect you to, but I'm glad you understand now. As Zorn watched Ethan walk away, he realized that humanity's place in the galaxy wasn't defined by their strength, technology, or even their resilience. It was defined by their spirit, a spirit that would never back down, never surrender, and never give up. The galaxy had underestimated humans for far too long, and now they would never make that mistake again.